And we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the FreudenFreude podcast, I guess you could say. Where we bring you content to help you grow and develop as a person and as a leader.
Sandra,
And I'm Claudia, and
I we are coaches.
we nearly forgot.
We are coaches.
We nearly forgot.
We are coaches.
Okay, I do not know why that thing came up right
We
now.
got excited.
So that's live. That's all live. We nearly forgot that one. One of these days we're gonna get it all set. So, Sandra,
You can hear me? You can hear me? Perfect. Okay, perfect. Yes, so I am a coach for expats and for the neurodiverse community as well as for the young professionals.
there you go. And I am a professional coach working with corporate leaders, entrepreneurs, as well as teams in tech and beyond. So, today, clutter. Oh, yes, clutter. I think a lot of people will be able to relate to this topic. So, before we start, Sandra, what is clutter for you?
Okay, clutter for me is the accumulation of items that somehow they start with a sentimental value and then they go or they you start seeing them as something useful eventually, and then they become so much a part of you that you cannot let go of some things. And we're talking about, like, for example, the drawer. Everybody has a drawer in their house, which is kind of,
Yeah.
yes, it's so funny. But that's clutter, right? And that is like the rubber bands that you bring from God knows what products, and you put them in there because although you barely ever use a rubber band, but something in your mind says, I'm going to need one. And you put it there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the little twisties, and then a screw, paper, purse, stuff that you can, put it in something. And you don't. So that's clutter for me.
Yeah, and
What about you, Claudia?
I think, yeah, and lucky to the ones that only have one such drawer, by the way. Yes. Okay. I think
Yes.
I think that you are right, and clutter is built on good intentions. I do
Mm-hmm.
think that much clutter happens for the sake of clutter. It's just
Mm.
something that happens. Um, I'm a big one when it comes to accessorizing for hobbies.
Okay.
That phenomenon, like, if I do something, I do something, okay?
Yes.
And,
Yes.
which is a wonderful plus when it comes to my business and my family and my engagement in general. But, when it comes to the accumulation of stuff, as it pertains to hobbies and things like that, maybe not my best trade. But
Mm-hmm.
I actually think that it's the stuff that weighs
Mm-hmm.
because I'm actually for me clutter my stuff is in general. Can you lower the volume a little bit, please?
Okay, sure.
The recording volume or mute. The For me, it's not so much the stuff, but for me, clutter. A large part of the clutter is the visual distraction. You understand? It's not the mental weight necessarily of the stuff. It's when the stuff is out and visible and makes visual chaos and starts to, because of that, largely starts to shrink your living space even if it's just a visual accumulation, not necessarily something that makes your room smaller, but because there's so much visual stimulus, I feel that it's adding mental weight. Yeah. And so for me that is a very big thing of clutter. If my stuff was put away and labeled and organized, because I'm a group and contain kind of girl, right? So I have boxes and boxes, people, okay? But the thing is that then it wouldn't bother me so much. But the fact that it gets to be so much that it's out and therefore visible, that bothers me. How is it for you, that aspect? Maybe you
Um,
have other. I mean, I'm letting it all hang out here today, people. Yeah, this is part of maybe also moving from a 5 bedroom home plus attached garage in the US and then moving into a 2 bedroom apartment here in Luxembourg. Kind of a not so easy downsize, and maybe that started it all a little bit. But there's stuff where I live. There's stuff. Yeah.
there's, you know what I think? And tell me, I'm going to lower the volume like you asked me. Because
Does the
anyways, I'll do it later. It doesn't.
microphone of yours picks up your husband talking in the next room?
Yeah, yeah, that's funny. Okay, I'll look it up later. So sorry, everybody, if you heard my husband. Okay, can you repeat the question, please?
But we were talking about the visual stimulus of
Mhm. Yes, okay. So, for example, for me, I know that it also is about personality, right? It's also about, okay. So I have a client. I think this is the best example that I have. This is how you start accumulating clutter and then you take it to the next level, which is something also part of today's conversation. She started off with, um, she was a home nurse. She would go and take care of a lot of sick people, old people, and they would leave her things. And so she did not want to get rid of them because when she would want to return it to the family would say, no, if my grandfather, whatever, whoever decided to leave it to you, then it's yours. Right. And so it started like that, very tiny. And then she started doing other activities. She started, you know, like pottery. Yes, she was doing pottery. She has a ton of books, a ton of art. She has a major in art from Italy. So the woman is extremely, extremely, extremely smart. And I also think that the personality, which is a smart person, cannot bother with those kind of things because they're so busy doing other things, okay? Which is studying, doing, writing, and all this kind of thing. So then her mother passes away, and her mother leaves her all her furniture. It's a it's something from a loved one. So she was not going to get rid of that stuff, and she started trying to fit it into her house, which goes into the visual distraction. And her husband said, honey, I love you with all my heart. I love you. But this is too much. Like it feels we cannot walk. And eventually it started getting to her children and her husband because her husband didn't want to get home because it was too much for him to handle. When you cannot move freely in your little heaven, because your house is your heaven, right? It's a place where you feel safe. It's the place where you think, where you create and all this kind of stuff. So he couldn't move. And then she herself started cleaning closets, and she would find the clothes from her children when they were babies and school stuff. And again, so the point here is the personality of the person is that she is very sentimental, right? She loves holding on to the things that people give her because she wants to show them that she cares by holding on to it. But I bet you 100 times that nobody is going to ask her, hey, do you still have mom's table? Nobody's going to ask her that,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
So at the end, her children don't want a big home. They moved out. The husband doesn't want to be at home. It's very sad because she suffers, she struggles. So it's a decision you have to make where do I want to keep my mom's stuff or do I want to keep my husband?
Right. Yes, yes. And
What do you think?
it might sound very straightforward looking in from
Mhm.
the outside. But if we continue with this example, maybe this lady absolutely knows that the husband is more important, and it's very
Right.
clear to her. And as a result, she understands that stuff has to go. On a fundamental conceptual level, she knows that.
Right.
Where the difficulty comes in when you stand there and you hold an item in your hand and you have to make the decision to let it go.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There's a huge disconnect between the idea of needing or wanting to declutter and
Mm-hmm.
actual decluttering. Because when
Mm-hmm.
you have this thing and it's impossible to throw stuff outside unseen. That doesn't work. That doesn't work, right? To just say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, have somebody come in and everything in that room is just gone and I'm gonna be okay without it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
People cannot do that. So you commit then to go through it and look at it. But then, like in your example, she stands there with, her son's second grade notebook.
Yeah.
And it's even though she knows it's this notebook versus my husband, it's still hard to let it go. And I think that as coaches also we ask then the next question, like what are because you hold on to these things because you get out something out of holding to these things that goes beyond the stuff,
Mm-hmm.
that goes beyond the that notebook. It's about sentimentality. It's about memories. Certain things might be about safety. You feel safe. Other things come in terms of connectedness to loved ones or people, like this lady that she cared for. There's things about maybe potential generosity. I will be able to gift this. Potential productivity, that's a big one. I will be able to use this and this and that way. And so there is a lot of underlying emotional needs that get satisfied through those things. And it's not necessarily about the item per se. And another thing I think that can be a very big part of it, and I have been also able to feel this, is that, for instance, sometimes it's difficult to say goodbye or close a chapter of your own thing. And maybe you can relate to this, Sandra, that maybe you had a hobby at some point with the associated stuff and accessories and things like that. And then you're not doing that hobby anymore. But the stuff is still there because it's a reminder of a part of you that was. It's kind of like prove that you did that and maybe you were good at it and so on. And it's like getting rid of it would kind of take away your accomplishments or your passion or your memories of that thing. Yeah. So I think that there's also this kind of part that plays into a proof of identity in certain items. Sorry, I talked a lot, but your microphone goes on and off. So
Oh,
what?
no, I'm putting it on mute. The reason why I'm like, yeah. So about 2 years ago, we went back to Houston, right? And I think I told you about this. I can't. We went back to Houston and we went to our storage, right? We sold our house. We don't own property in Houston. So we rented a storage. Well, the storage was broken into. And although thankfully my husband and I stared at everything, we like watching a collection of things, but even though it's a collection, it's nothing. It's a collection of nothing. I don't know if it makes sense. You're staring at it and you're thinking, huh, but did I really use all those things? So it's another mindset that you have effort so that you can get over it,
Maybe
right?
it was because you had kind of been able to distance yourself from
Yes.
it, because I think that certain items can become stale, and that your attachment to it can diminish. And I think maybe it also, like, you have been living in Saudi Arabia, what, 8 years now, something like that?
8 years and a half. Mhm.
Right. So, and all the stuff at that point you had not used for 6 years. And on top of it, it wasn't even part of your current life. So when you saw it, was it kind of seeing a stranger's items?
It's knowing that it's yours and saying, well, I can't do anything about it. Like we were so surprised of how we acted because I guess it's like the Kubler-Ross emotion, right? You're trying to understand what's going on. And then afterwards, which was the really weirdest stuff, is that we started accepting the situation and we were like, you know what, that's fine. We didn't use all that stuff. Yes, they took one of the best things, they're not dumb. They took my wedding dress. They took my crown for my wedding. I mean, it was everything. And then the the denial of, no, we're not going to miss it. Like you said, it was we realized that we had not used the stuff this time, and our attitude was like, let them have our trash. They need it, fine, whatever. We'll recover it, blah blah blah. And then we were upset. Okay, and then we would go back again, like, but don't worry, we'll recover it. Okay, and then, but they took my dress. Oh, but here's the thing, I never really liked it until I lost it. No, see, like I didn't like my wedding dress, and it was a beautiful wedding dress. And now that I look at the pictures, I'm like, man, that was a beautiful dress. So once you lose things, you start valuing the things that you had, but then at the same time, what's the point? You cannot recover them.
Yeah, and it's not like it's something that you wear every day. I mean, I still have,
Exactly.
as well. It's 20 years old, and it's but it has. I think I tried it on once since I got married, just because we moved because I moved it obviously from the U.S. to Luxembourg, and as I went through that whole thing, I tried it on once on my 10th wedding anniversary or something like that, and it's like, oh, okay, but then you put it right back away. So what's actually the point of holding on to it, right? So the thing is really, um,
Oh,
it's
sorry. Let me interrupt you. The thing that for us was it's not that they took it. It's the principle of people feeling so that they could go into something that belongs to somebody else and take it. That was, it wasn't about losing the items. Again, it was the audacity
Yeah,
to
yeah.
break in. That
Well,
was a problem.
I mean,
Sorry.
our neighbors here, an elderly couple 2 houses down, they got broken into, and they felt, for the longest time, really violated by that. That somebody went into their safe space or fussed with their stuff. Thankfully, not much got taken, but nevertheless, it was this intrusion, and I think
Mm.
that because it's not what we would naturally do. It's really the audacity, really, and you feel aggressed. It's a kind of violence. So even though it's not necessarily against you, a physical person. So there's a lot happening here, and I had a discussion at some point with a lady who unfortunately their house burned down. This was still in the U.S., and houses are made out of wood for the large majority, especially in New England, and their house burned to the ground. Everything was gone. They were all safe, but they had essentially just their car and the clothes on their backs. There was everything else was gone. And weirdly enough, a couple years later, she told me it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Right? I mean, because she said, like, we focused so much on us as a family coming through this trauma, and we reassessed what's really important, and it gave us kind of a clean slate to start fresh and to be much more judicious about things. And I found that quite interesting. And I don't think everybody necessarily can do that. Yeah, because if everything that I owned was gone, it would really hurt. I would really fumble around for a little while, right? But I already know what I would replace and what I wouldn't replace. Isn't that interesting? And yet I keep the
Huh?
stuff I wouldn't replace still around. Yeah, maybe because it's easier to keep it around than to get rid of it. And the so how was it when you moved countries? Because typically when you go on a large relocation like that, and that's something that your expat clients can probably also relate to, is how do you think about your stuff? What's your premise?
So one of the things that when I moved in with my husband was obviously I had to move from my house to his house. I told my husband, because he was helping me, space are things that I haven't touched or seen, let's say in the past 3 years. Give them away or throw them away. That is because my father put that in our heads. And that was a very practical way to do. And again, it comes into a personality, it comes on how you were taught and raised. So that has a lot to do, right? How you lived and what was missing or what was not missing in when you were a child. And so my father's rule was if you haven't touched it in the past 3 years, throw it away. And that's what I did. But it wasn't until I heard Marie Kondo that she would say, you have to be appreciative of the things that you are going to let go. She doesn't use throw away, let go, because they already served you, they served their purpose, and just say thank you. And so, believe it or not, when you close the gap and you give closure to things, it's easier to let go of them than it is to just throw it away and then say, oh, why did I throw it away? No. So I did that. And when I did the move, it was, I felt so light. I felt so good because we did let's say, kind of like a little list of the things that he had and what he could be missing. And so I complimented stuff. He complimented my stuff. And then everything else just was given away, which is different than throwing away.
Actually, that is a very big point. When we were in the US, we inherited all of my husband's father's stuff, all of my husband's grandmother's stuff, right? So
Mm,
we had several households that got merged. We had a big house with attached garage that was full. So when we moved back to Europe, now it is 12 years ago, this September,
mm, mhm,
I had gotten rid of more than half of my stuff, and I managed to do so. But in large part, I managed to do so because in the US, there's a large market for secondhand items. Craig was my friend, yeah. Uh,
Yes.
you list, for those that are not American, you list stuff on this website called Craigslist, and it's kind of this place where you can just post things, and it's people will come and pick it up and things like that. We had an outdoor pool. We didn't want to deal with it. I said, like, pool free. You take it apart, you move it, it's yours. And it was gone in half a day, right?
Woo.
This was a huge structure, but things like that really easy to get rid of. So you have exercise equipment, you have, whatever that's still usable and in good condition, you can sell it or give it away very easily. It's a big market for that. And then on top of it, you have, these capabilities to donate, which we
Mhm,
did not. You can literally fill trailers of your
mhm,
car, fill trailers with all your stuff, kitchen stuff and books and clothes and all, of course, still respectable and good quality stuff. I mean, good condition stuff. And you can donate it to places like the Salvation Army and the Red Cross, and they have a whole crew of volunteers there that are going to sort it and make donations to places that need it. And they have these huge warehouses where they sell the used stuff.
mhm, mhm.
That made it possible for me to let go of enormous amounts of things. Then I came to Luxembourg, where culturally it's a big no-no to use something that's secondhand. Yeah,
Mhm.
because it might mean that you are not able to buy new. Yeah, it's kind of snobbish that way. Sorry, Luxembourg's
Yeah.
people. No, it's not everybody, but there are not many places where you can donate things.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
it actually gives you gray hairs, yes, like these here, if you go to the monthly dumpster place, right? Like every
Yes.
town has a place where you can go with your big garbage once a month, essentially, because you see these
Yes.
pieces of furniture and these very usable things that people throw away because there's no secondhand market, there's no places to donate them, and so on. And that makes it really difficult because now, if I have something, let's say I would have, everybody knows my favorite thermos here, but imagine I would have a second one that I don't use. Now, I
Mhm.
have a perfectly usable thermos, and maybe it's a bad example, but I have a very usable thermos, and unless I keep it, I have to throw it into recycling or in,
Mhm. Mhm.
understand? And for certain people like myself that are a little bit have a hard time with throwing things away, that is too
Mhm.
big a stretch. If I could
Yes.
give it to the Salvation Army where it could see a second life and so on, it's easy to let it go,
Yes.
right? So
Mhm.
I think that there's degrees, and if things can be given a second life or another life beyond, or a better life than what I would give it if it collects dust. I think that the ones that deal with this usefulness excuse, it will be used
Mhm.
again sometime, or it
Yes.
could be useful kind of thinking,
Mhm.
that can really be helpful. And it's very
Yes.
unfortunate that in certain places on this planet that is not happening. I mean, even if you give stuff away for free, people wouldn't take it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. That's true. I can tell you that, for example, again, I think the way that I do things, and thank goodness, the only things that I keep for more than 10 years are documents, like IRS stuff and taxes, and that is the only thing that I have, that even when I travel, I put together all the receipts and everything else, and I put them in a safe place, and that's it. And they stay there for 10 years. And even if it's possible, if there's space, I keep them for even longer, because you never know when the IRS is going to say, hey, I need to see your documents, right? But everything else, yeah, I've accumulated too many books. Like, I look around, I'm like, oops. There's books on the floor. There's here a stack of books. There's here all these papers and notebooks and all this kind of stuff. And then I have all of these books right here. And then so when I start feeling this way, because that is clutter, okay, I am comfortable with having stacks and stuff like that, but they have to at least look clean. They have to at least look organized, because there's nothing wrong with having stacks of books. I mean, there's libraries, there's people that have these personal libraries in their house, and they have books on the floor, and it actually looks nice. I mean, I have to say, it actually looks nice. So I have no problem with that. But there's a difference also between dirty and uh not in its place. I forgot the right word that I wanted to use, sorry. um that's a huge difference, right? And so for me, that's what makes the difference, that I could have stacks, but it has to at least be clean.
Yeah, yeah. And for me, it's kind of along the same lines. Yes, it has to be clean. It also needs to, for me, I'm you know, if I have a lot of stuff, it still needs to be, it needs to make sense. It needs to be together, right? Um, my dad has a lot. He's a magician when it comes to home improvement and
Oh,
fixing
really? Okay.
like machinists and electronics. He can do it all. But the drawback of that is that he keeps everything, every little screw, every little piece of screw,
Oh,
every little,
yes.
yeah. And the thing that it's not that he keeps it because I know he uses it. And the whole neighborhood knows that he uses it sometimes, right? God bless him. And but the thing is that it is not together because he thinks in his head it goes, I could have a need for a little piece of wire in that room as well. So he has the little wires hanging off hooks, like, in every little room and every little, it's like, at least for me, there would be one place for the wires and one place for the painting supplies and one place for this and that.
Mhm.
It would be grouped together. And then on top of that, contained, like not like in boxes, right? So that it's contained, which also helps with the visual clutter, a thing that I'm really sensitive to. So
Yep.
the it makes sense in the minds of the people, and it's easy for us to look at somebody else's stuff, and so hard and very different when we look at our own. So letting go, I think is a process also. As coaches, we know that there's a way of going away from something or to be attracted by something different, right? I could go and I say, I want to get away from the clutter, or I could be attracted by my external living environment, being more attuned, more in line with what I desire and who I want to be, right? Like it's this more future oriented thing that then puts it into perspective, that yes, in the way that I imagine myself and my life, this particular thing does no longer make sense, right? And then it becomes more possible for many to let go of certain things because frankly, I'm never gonna do this again, or this
Okay.
is not part anymore of my future identity. Yeah.
Mm.
um,
Mhm.
and for instance, like let's give me an example. You just talked about books. I'm also a bibliophile, or I used to be. Now I'm more of I read more things electronically and things like that. So and it was also because of space. It does, I have like a 3.5 meter by 4 meter library right over there. But the thing is that I had, for instance, a lot of advanced mathematics books. Some of you might remember that I actually did study mathematics and engineering in college. So I had, some hefty graduate level mathematics books. People in no universe, parallel universe to this one, will I ever go back into that level of mathematics. It ain't happening, right? And so just being able to realize that, and being able to, like you say, give kind of closure to that idea. It does not minimize the dissertation I wrote in college. It doesn't minimize the way that my brain still thinks to this day, because it was trained
Mhm.
kind of rigorous thinking. That's what I got out of all that, because don't ask me any like advanced theorems and proofs and things like that anymore. It ain't happening. But the thing is, like, putting that to bed, like letting it go.
Yes.
Letting it go. And then if you can, because as your future my future identity is as a coach. That's my future identity. So this hyper advanced mathematics stuff, it doesn't fit anymore. And then of those things I can let go.
I guess if you would have turned out to be a rocket scientist, right? If you would have been at NASA, right, when it started and everything, yes, of course, you would have. In all his engineering books, and he still uses his engineering books. But in reality, a lot of us really school books you never keep, like you never open them again. And so that's why a lot of people say, it's very common, hey, look, if you no longer are going to use that book, uh, sell it back again to the library or to the bookstore, and they will give you some money for it, and then they will resell it because it makes sense. It's school books are beautiful, they're wonderful, but really, why keep school books unless really you have some kind of maybe architecture, right? For the beauty of the things that you have, maybe the special books that you have with pictures and buildings and all this kind of stuff. But like you said, Claudia, you didn't end up being.
I would never have let go of any school book until I finished school. That would
Exactly.
never have occurred to me. I would always held on to it because it would refer back to things. It's not like you study one course and there's a never see this again. I mean, usually curricula are, stacked on each other, and you will need to go back, right? I mean, the fact that you're doing differential equations right now doesn't absolve you from calculus 3 or whatever, right? So
Right, right.
um
Oh,
the
but let me tell you something. Sorry. There were two very special books. Like we had books in the house, And before my father passed away, he met a family that needed school books. He never asked us. He could have given in that studio that we had, except for those two books. They were called Baldor. Okay. The last name was Baldor. I don't remember the first name, but everybody knows them as Baldor. And they are about math. Okay. And they are currently and still one of the best books about math. Everybody, it was so expensive, like only the special ones have that. And if you had it, then you would let other people make copies and stuff like that. But he gave it away. And can you believe it that I still am butthurt about it?
Yes. I can understand. Yes, yes.
So sorry, go ahead.
The special ones, the special ones. Yes, yes.
Yes.
And so I think that if we were to do an audit of really not what do we use right now and so on, that of course is useful in itself to get rid of like the, in your case, the 3-year-old things or the 10-year-old things. I grew up in a house where I don't think my parents ever threw a piece of furniture away, ever,
Okay.
ever.
Okay.
And then I moved here and they're still standing around. Yeah, my dad would not be happy if I would get rid of one of his pieces of furniture. So, there's different cultural and family cultural things as well that tie into us. But irrespective of that, if you are free to choose and you were to do an audit, not only about the past and the present, but really focus on this future, the future vision of yourself, the future identity that you're after, maybe the feeling you would like in a space. Yeah, because that's part two. I've in my thing, like rooms and apartments and houses have a certain energy that is there, and
Yes.
you can create that, right? Or stuff can start encroaching on it and making it more like three or whatever. And so if you want that, then I think it sets you in a mind frame that maybe allows you a little bit more of letting things go. And that is a standard coaching tactic, right? Build the life you want to lead, and look at the future and be attracted by that, and go into a solution mode rather than a problem mode. And
Mhm.
so the solution is to get rid of it, not the problem is that I have to get rid of it. Do you hear the difference?
Yes, correct. Mhm.
And so I think that is a big part of it. But actually, one of the things I wanted to mention, let me check on the time. Yeah, we have about 15 minutes.
Okay.
The thing also that clutter, in my view, is also not limited to stuff. We talked about a lot about things now about stuff, but
I know
we
where
have
you're going.
thoughts that are clutter. We have behaviors and habits that are clutter and that distract us from what is useful and just add weight and add stress. And, we have people that are clutter. Yeah,
Oh, yes.
I mean, sorry to put it like that, but let's just go with that because that's our topic.
I love it. Mhm.
Right? We have people that no longer serve us and that even they detract us from our purpose, that zap our energy. And also, there sometimes we might need to let go. What is
Oh.
your thought on that?
Um, it makes me think about a lot of people. It makes me think about a recent experience where I thought that I had a friend and she turned out to be a little bit judgy. And when I realized this, because I was pouring my heart, she was my good friend and all this kind of stuff. And I realized that this person was more about what she can get out of me than what was the value that we were bringing together, right? And I just, and I'm being honest, like I suffered because I really considered her a friend. And especially here as an expat, anybody that you meet, you try to hold on to because they're not just friends, they kind of become really part of your family. And then I realized one day, I woke up and I thought, why am I suffering over a person that clearly has not even shown up here in front of my door in 3 months? Why do I care? And so, in a way, that was space that she was occupying in my head that I could have used that energy, because even emotions are energy. They take away from building other experiences, building other relationships. And so I let her go. And now once in a while, I'm like, hi, how are you? You know, the other day we went for a coffee, all four of us, and we talked, and that was it. But you learn to let go of people. You have to do it. But it's about realizing, hey, what is the value that this person is bringing?
Right, and it's not necessarily an easy process. Like you
No,
said,
it's not.
it can be really painful with associated grief. Yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
grief, everything that we let go, whether it be stuff or people or ideas or part of our identity, all these things that we let go, even if it's for the better, are going to be painful. Okay, and you're going
Mm-hmm.
to spaces like Kubler-Ross of, trying
Yeah.
to find your new normal.
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
yeah, people can be a big factor like that, and I like the expression that you used. She took up space in my head, just
Mm-hmm.
like physical stuff takes space in your living quarters. Uh, these unfruitful ideas, these meaningless habits, and so on, they do take space in your brain. And what else could you do with that energy? What else could you do with that, that just freed up time and thought and all that kind of stuff? So
Yes.
it really comes down to having a certain hygiene in those kind of things. It's really, like there were like what were they called? There was this whole movement about 100 years ago about natural life hygiene or something like that. But it was really that it's to be really judicious with your choices, and
Yes. Uh-huh.
be more mindful about them as well, because I think that maybe, and now that I had the opportunity, thank you, Sandra, to discuss this with you, is maybe another way of for me to define clutter is the things that exist that are not in alignment with who I am at this moment or in my future. Meaning there's things, people, thoughts, stuff that on the outside, or on this case, that exist, stuff on the outside that do not reflect who I am on the inside, right? It's
I love
like
that.
you look at your office. Is this the kind of office that is
That a-
congruent with my view of an office or my way that I work, and my way that I want to present myself, my own narrative, my brand, my story, my energy? Does it fit? And all the things that make it not fit maybe are clutter.
Yes, exactly. That is wonderful. That is a really nice realization. And I think that is a very healthy way to say, how can I improve my life? How can I bring quality to my life? That's very nice. I also wanted to add to one last thing. There's a very famous program or show, actually. I don't know if you've seen it on a channel called TLC. It's called Hoarders. And I've seen it, but I've seen it with the curiosity to try to understand the behaviors, the psychology behind that, to see how a lot of people cry. And they really, really cry. They cannot let go. There's been people that have lost their house. And not a rented space, no, nothing like that. It's their house because the city considers it hazard, a danger to the community, and they tearing down the house. Preferred to lose the house than to get rid of the items that were the reason as to why they were going to lose, or in this case, lost the house. And one of the things that I always keep in mind, that why when this person came to me, this lady that I was telling you about, but I don't know what to do with the clothes. I cannot let go. And I said, look, you have purchase that need baby clothes. You have shelters, animal shelters that need towels, bedspreads. They need a lot of stuff. You have children from orphanages that you can take stuff like that. I mean, really, there's a lot of places. You like to drive, you like to go around the city. You cannot stay in your house. So why don't you use that time with other people, and you're giving it a useful thing? So for me to finish from my side, because we're almost 5 minutes away from finishing, what I realized every time we would come as a conclusion is the value that you give to the item during the time that you're using it. And like you said, it's not about just items. I even think about my pets, right? The value that I gave them, how I took care of them, so that when it's time to let go of something, to say goodbye, you are more at peace with yourself because you wanted to do, did, in this case, an item, a book, whatever. You threw away the people that are not good for your life, emotions, behaviors. And now it's a second stage, right? It's now time for you to open your doors again and see what is out there. That's what I realized. Like, what are you doing with it to say goodbye?
Yeah,
What do you think?
you make space for new things, and again, to say a Marie Kondoism, it's to things that spark joy, because there's something to that, because every time that you might look at clutter or be exposed to it, or you allow it to enter really your consciousness, because a lot of it you don't want to think about, don't want to look at, yeah, you kind of ignore it, but it's still there. So it's not sparking joy. You can't get rid of it, but it's not really doing anything with it. And, as a long time stuff person, I have read Don Aslet's books. Guys, if you ever are able to read Don Aslet, they are worth it just for the illustrations in that book. So
Okay.
he wrote some decluttering thing. It's really funny. It's very practical, but very funny. It was like the most wonderful, funny illustrations about overflowing cupboards and things like that. And, he also said that, I forgot actually the point that I wanted to make of it, but if you, it has to make sense to you, and it's going to encroach again on your thoughts. And all that stuff is there. You have to clean it, you have to insure it, it takes up space in, your valuable real estate. For many of us, real estate is the most expensive thing that we own, and yet we fill the cupboards and the corners and things like that with often meaningless stuff, rather than have giving it space to breathe and to just live. Again, I am the first one to acknowledge that between the conceptual idea of decluttering and the actual decluttering, there's a big gap there. Okay. Whole discussion for another time, like all the excuses and all the stuff that comes up, why you should be holding on to something. And sometimes you get rid of stuff and later you regret. It happens. It happens.
Yes, yes, it does.
And so that's painful too. And so it's not a trivial thing. But I believe it starts with awareness and allowing yourself to realize this is natural boundaries that you're setting, and that it's not that you got to get rid of stuff, but that you choose to live a different life. So it's not about the stuff. It's about who you want to be and the life you want to lead.
Perfect. Love it. Love it, Claudia.
Wrap it on that. That sounded pretty like philosophical, and hey, gotta go organize a little bit more. It's time for spring cleaning. We're in May. The days are sunny and longer, so it's time for that annual spring clean.
There you
Fantastic.
go.
So, thanks everybody for listening. We would love to hear your stories about this. Do you have some anecdotes to share? Some tips, maybe? We can always do another clutter show if you want to join us and share your experiences and your ideas on the matter. It's definitely something that a lot of people have experience with and or struggle with. So drop us a comment or get in touch with us on social media. We would really love to hear about it. Otherwise, as usual, please show us some love. Click the subscribe button. Engage with our content on YouTube and LinkedIn. And we hope to see you again in future episodes. Okay,
Thank
so
you very much, Claudia.
fun and happy organizing. I'm sure that you feel inspired now, don't you?
Yes, I do. Let's see. Let's see how we do tomorrow. Take care, Claudia. See you next
Everybody,
week.
bye bye.